Remote neural monitoring involves provoking the victim and prompting them by provocation into certain thought patterns or certain behaviour patterns. These are then recorded on a computer, which they're recorded as EEG signals or electrical impulses, which are amplified in order to record them. And the software that is used is like a graph, and it represents different values for the electrical impulses. These will appear on the actual controller screen as squiggles, and they will be in different colours, rather like a graph. When you look at a graph, a company graph, an income expenditure graph, that they look quite similar to that, but there's a lot of different variables, and the provocation of the victim is constant, and it's the same things being done over and over again by gangstalkers, which are either mind controlled or bribed or otherwise manipulated into performing these same actions to the attacked individual. And that's why the attacked individual is subjected to the same antisocial words, behaviours over and over and over again. And it's to verify that the squiggles that they're receiving, that they see on their computer, represent accurately a response that they've provoked. And like in a lab, you don't do a test 2 or 3 times. You do it hundreds of times, generally, to get the probability down that any of it is from other influences. So that's what they're doing. They're trying to get a scientific verification that what they're doing is indeed causing this particular EEG signal, which represents the squiggle on the screen, the feedback that they're getting from you after provoking you, represents the emotion, the thought pattern, the feeling, or the action, or a combination of all of those and more that they want. Remote neural monitoring also, the gathering of these EEG, which are represented by your emotions, your thoughts, your whatever it is, the gathering is represented by these squiggles on their computer. And to feed back the squiggles, or rather I should say the energy, electrical energy that they've gathered from, that has given this squiggle, which represents that, to feed that back to the victim, they're hoping to get the same again in return. So they know that when they've verified and they've got the same squiggle over and over and over again after prompting the person in the same ways, they believe they know what that person is thinking and feeling, and they believe if they can input that back in the form of electrical signals using other technology as well, then they can make that person feel or think the same thing. You understand what I'm saying? And again, that will be come back. If they put a squiggle in, what represents, the energy that they know that represents particular emotions such as anger in a particular situation, and they've garnered that, they put that back in. And if they get the return signal to be exactly the same, it's verified. And they need to do it constantly and over time. Okay, that's remote neural monitoring. There's plenty of information, more technical information about it online. And there's also books by people such as Dr. Robert Duncan, Richard Lighthouse, done some good books. There's a lot of information, and Brian Chu as well on online. Now, because of that, they're actually looking to predict and get the same feedback, so they can say, right, this is this. If we provoke this person in this way, we get this squiggle, and we've had this squiggle hundreds of times, maybe slightly different each time, but this accords to provoking them in that way. Therefore, we know if we put this squiggle back, they're going to feel that way. Okay? And one of the things they will do is they will try and control not just your emotions and your thinking and they'll try and control your behaviour. An example would be making you eat a particular thing at a certain time or go to a certain place. And if you have any strong cravings, you've got to remember targeted individuals are also being subjected to subliminal silent audio as well. And I have done some audio on those things as well. Here, this is just dealing with how to screw up remote neural monitoring. So because of its predictive nature and its need to verify that what they're doing is going to get the same squiggle back, a good way to mess it all up is to use dice for everything. Especially if you have a strong craving, such as to go and see a particular film movie, to eat a particular thing, to go to a particular restaurant, to contact a particular friend. We've all got intuition, we've all got hunches. And unfortunately, this technology, it's like a synthetic. It tries to input synthetic hunches, synthetic intuition, in order to get you to do things so that they can predict your behaviour and ultimately, that's right, ultimately control it. If it stands to reason that if they are putting them in it, trying to get a particular result back, and you're using a dice, then the squiggles are never going to be the same, and it's not going to be able to verify that what they're doing is working, which is good, isn't it? Because we don't want it to work, do we? This doesn't mean that they will stop doing what they're doing, because they're still getting paid for it. You've got to remember, if you're doing an experiment in a lab, just because the outcome isn't what you're expecting or you want, you do not stop the experiment. You still get a result and you still write up your findings. So it's my guess that it's not going to stop it, but ultimately it will mess it up. And if they're not getting predictive responses back, they cannot verify what they're doing, then they cannot control you ultimately. That's how using a dice stands to reason, because you're changing the probability factor of the squiggles. It may be difficult in the beginning to use a dice for such things as where you're going to eat, what you're going to eat, where you're going to go, what music you're going to play, even what you're going to wear. Just use it for as many things as you can. Generally, if something is unusual and you don't tend to do it often, such as an impulse purchase, that is probably coming from your genuine personality, because they will have had nothing to gain that, because it's unique, it's original, it's completely different. They won't have any squiggles to input back in. So it goes without saying that if they are using provocation and they are inputting that back, the results of that, in order to get the same, and you're using a dice to determine your behaviour, if you can, then what they're getting back isn't going to match up. Therefore, they're probably going to try harder. But if you keep on using a dice, especially if you've got any cravings, for instance, if you normally have a pizza every Friday night on your way home from work or wherever, and it's always the same pizza, you always go to, for instance, Domino's or something for it, then they'll probably have, if they've been using this technology on you, they'll have a strong correlation between the signal on their screen, the squiggle, and you go and doing that. So every time you do that, this is where the guy, this is. So if they put that squiggle back, you'll probably get a craving to go there and get the pizza. That's just an example. So if you're using a dice, you might not go there. You're going to input variables into it things that you probably not really don't want to do, but you never know, you may like them. You might decide to go to an Indian restaurant instead, or you might decide to pick up a Chinese takeaway, or you might decide to cook at home, or you might decide to go to the supermarket and buy a ready meal, or you might, as long as you're doing something different, you know. But throw the original thing in there as well with the options on the dice. Okay, right, that is one way to screw up remote neural monitoring, because it interferes with the predictive capability. Thank you. God bless you. Hope it helps. Bye.